This is the 3-bar Slate Wagon which we're about to build. It's a fairly straightforward kit, fairly time consuming though, quite a few number of parts to put together. Comes with ball raced axles and binny wheels, and is supplied with a 3-link chain to couple up to other units. Any questions or comments, then please email me. Thank you. The Slate Wagon also comes with a slate load, as can be seen. This has been designed so it will fit straight into the Slate Wagon. I will demonstrate. These can be either left loose or can be fixed in with some double-sided tape on the bottom, or a bit of plasticine or blue tack to stop them rattling around. This then gives the wagon that little bit of extra weight without any weights underneath. So that comes with the kit. This is construction of the 3-bar Slate Wagon. We'll start off by putting the bearings into the bearing holders. So you need to locate 4, they look like old-fashioned clocks, and they are 2mm thick, and you need to locate the ones which are 4mm thick. Again, there'll be 4 of them. They have a good side and a bad side. The good side is clean, the bad side is dirty. This is important when we come to assemble them together. We have exactly the same on the thinner ones. You have a clean side and a dirty side. So we start off by putting a bearing on the thin one into the clean side, push him through. Do that on the other 4. Again, bearing in on the clean side, clean side, and clean side. And the bearing protrudes slightly out the other side. So we then take the thicker 4mm one and we turn him over so we have the dirty side. So that then drops on top and push together. If you stand it upright and push down, they'll align with each other. So again, we take the thick one, we turn it over so we've got the dirty side, and we clip it together. Same. And the same. Now what we're going to do is going to actually glue the bearing. I'll just point my screwdriver. You're just going to run some super glue around that area there on all 4 of them, just to locate the bearing in. What we don't want to do though is to actually glue the 2 parts together. So I'll get my super glue. For this I use the runny one. And then just a small amount. Just run it around the bottom of the bearing. Try not to stick your fingers to it. By capillary action, the super glue will wick under the bearing and locate it in position. Right, we put that aside to dry while we move on to the next stage. Right, while we're waiting for that to dry, we'll start to build up the chassis. So we need to find these 2 parts next. Fairly thin with lines engraved on it and just no lines on it at all. Now you'll notice on these there's a slight cutout on each of them. It's important that we're going to glue that on top. We've got to make sure that the cutouts line up with each other. And we have to glue this on so that we can actually see the lines that are engraved on top. So it is possible to put this together wrong, but if you carry out what I've just done, lines on top, cutout lines up. And this is a dummy run, so just tamp it down, tamp it down. That's what we'll be doing when we come to glue it together, which is the next job we will now do. And for that I use a PVA wood glue. We use it very sparingly. We put it on this piece because we don't want to get anything in the holes yet. So sparingly, just a little drop. Nothing dramatic. And then with your finger, just spread it around a little bit. Being careful not to get any in the holes. And then double check. You can see the lines, drop him on top. And push him down. All the way around. And you can see now that we've actually got that cutout lined up. Remove any excess glue. Right, just have a general look around the edges to make sure everything is square. We've still got a chance to move it if it's not. That's looking good. So we put that to one side to dry. We move on to the next section. Right, we can now move back to the bearing assembly. So we're now going to fit the covers. So you need to find 4 covers and the 4 bearings we previously glued, and this part here, which is the jig. I'll do a dummy run to show you how it goes. What we're going to do is we're going to apply some white PVA wood glue just along that edge there, and then we drop him onto the wood glue like that. And then we take the whole assembly and we feed it into the jig so it drops down. Push the outer piece, the thin 1mm down, and the thick one together, and just check that they're both pushed down, and you should see a small line or a protrusion all the way around to show that it's central. So then by pushing down and in, so that's down and that way on the back piece, we should then get a good join. And then we'll have some glue which will protrude through that area there, so we need then just with a knife blade or the end of a screwdriver just to wipe that glue out the way. So I'll go ahead and do that. Don't need very much glue. And we drop him on into the jig and push them both down, and again check that it's central and push down on both of them, and then really push down and in. You can see we've got some glue oozing up, so I'm going to remove that. Use a knife blade, a tissue, end of a screwdriver. Right, just wait about 20 seconds just for that glue to go off. And then carefully remove it. And as you can see, we have some more excess glue in that area there, which we can remove. and that area which we can remove. So we can now put that to one side to dry and move on to the next one, which I'll do second time round so you can see. Small amount of glue. Cover on. Oh, leave the other bit behind. Into the jig. Push down on both of them and into each other. Again, make sure that you've got it central. If not, just slide it a little bit. There's a little bit of movement in the jig. That's looking good. Hold that for a few seconds. And then as you can see, again, we've got excess glue. Just remove that. Carefully remove it. Dropped off again. We'll be gluing those together in a moment. So again, remove the excess. Put that aside to dry. And do the remaining two, which I'll do when you come back. I've done those. Right, so I've now done my other two. So the next job now is to glue the two parts together. So take it apart as I've done. Very, very small amount of super glue, very small amount of white PVA. Push them back together. Put it into the jig. And squeeze it all together. And remove any excess that comes through. Remove from the jig and move on to the next one. Again, separate them. Small amount of wood glue. Spread it around a little bit with your finger. Drop it, push it back together. Into the jig and push them together, and again squeeze tight and remove any excess glue. Right, I'll go ahead and do the remaining two. When you come back, we'd have finished all four. Right, I've now done that. Now is a good idea, or a good time, to actually oil them while you remember. Again, I use a small syringe. Just put a little bit of oil into the back of each one. If you do it now, you don't forget, because once it's all assembled, not the easiest thing to get to, although it is possible. And wipe off any excess oil. So we can now put the bearings to one side, and the jig, we shan't need that anymore. So we'll now move back to this part here. Let's put the oil on board, right. So the next job to add to this one is the actual top surface, which has got to be glued onto it in that position. Now you may find that some of these holes have still got their little bits in, so you need to pop those out. We should have done that on the other number of holes on there. If you've forgotten to take the bits out, quite literally just put a pin in and it will pop out, or give it a good knock and the pieces will come out. So we have to glue this onto there, but we've got to make sure that all the holes line up. Now to enable us to do that, we use 4 of the little pins, and we use those temporarily. Doesn't matter which ones. I'll just grab the first 4 I've got. We'll do a dummy run first of all. We should find that they will drop in. And that will firmly locate that in the right position. So that's a dummy run, so we now glue that in position. So take the pins out. And again we put glue on this part because we don't want to get any in the holes. Again, use it very sparingly. See if we can put some down the middle. Again, just sort of spread it out a bit with your finger. Lay on the 1mm. Drop the pins in. And generally push down and squeeze it all around. Any excess glue just wipe off. Right, we'll put that to one side now to dry. While we're waiting for that to dry, let's do a little bit of explaining on some of the other parts you're going to come across. I'll just zoom in on that so you can see it a bit better. Right, okay. Right, there are 6 long ones, 4 short ones, and a very short one. We don't worry about the very short one for the moment. And there's lots of little washers, and there's 3 sizes, and the sizes is the actual thickness. That's 1mm, 2mm and 3mm. So if we turn them on their side, obviously I'm not going to, there we go. So you can see 1, 2 and 3mm. And these are the bobbins arrangement, or the arrangement we use to build up the bobbins. And what will happen is that the, I'll zoom back out again. The 6 longer ones go in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 4 shorters, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we start to build up the bobbins. And as we do, we then add the planks as we go along. Right, it wasn't quite true what I said about 3 sizes. There are in fact 4 sizes. So we've got a 1, but it's a big diameter. Another 1, which is the thickness, but that's a smaller diameter. Then we've got the 2 and then the 3. Now, if we move the 2 and the 3 out of the way, because they're pretty obvious, but it's very important that you sort out into one pile the bigger one from the little one, because they get used to make up a cotton reel effect. And as we start to build up the layers, I'll tell you when to start using the smaller one. So until you're told, always use the bigger 1mm thick one. So the first task is, now that we've explained all that, this is now dry enough, is to actually fit the rods into the base plate. Now, accompanying the kit is a small diagram, which I'll grab a copy of. There we go, which you can probably see, but you've got it in front of you. I don't know if you can see that in the video. Yeah, that's all right then. Okay. And what's that showing is the thicknesses of the washers we have to use to get the spacing right for the planks. So starting on the base, and the base is that part there, and this is the side view, so we're looking from that direction there, from the side. So we would put in a 1mm, 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 and then a 2 or 2s on top and 1 on top. And then the end view, which is looking like that from there, again from the base, but on this case we would go 1, 4 and a 1. So we'll explain that how we go along. Right, so I've got my 10 ready. You may find on some of them that the actual centre part hasn't popped out. If you take a rod, that would easily just pop out. So if you clean all those up ready, makes it a bit easier when you come to fit them. There are a few spare, so if you do drop one or lose one, you'll find that there's a spare one there, because I just dropped one. So I'll just grab another one. Okay, so I got my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I have my rods lined up. So I've got the shorter ones on the right, longer ones on the left. So we need to do a little dollop of PVA glue on the end of each rod, and then drop over one of the washers. So the 6 long ones go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Short ones go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll do the long ones first of all. So pick up a long one. Just a small amount. I push that down into the hole. And then you take a 1mm one, you slide him over and push him down. And then with a small knife blade, or in my case a rather large knife blade, remove any excess glue from the, I can't see it, can you, from the washer. And make sure that the rod is roughly upright. So we then move on to the next one. Again, using the long ones first. Small amount of PVA on the end. Into the hole. Washer on top. Push him down, remove the excess, making sure he's roughly upright. Next one, washer. Push them down. Remove the excess. So we've now got our first 3 in, which should all be the same height. Now as a reference, or just a check on that height, just grab one of the straight ones, and if you just lay it across the top, you should find that if you've done it right, they're all the same length. So we then move up to the other end. We do exactly the same. Push them down. And do the remaining 2, which I'll go ahead and do. Right, I've now done my other end. As a double check, just lay something flat along the edge that they're all the same height. So we can now do the remaining 4, which are the ones 1, 2, 3, 4 in the middle. Exactly the same, but these are shorter. Same process, washer down over, remove the excess. So if you'd like to do the other 3, then when you come back, I'd have done mine as well. Right, now we're going to start to build up the bobbins. Now if you lay it out the way I've done it here, it means you shouldn't go wrong. So according to the piece of paper, along this line here, we should have 1, 1, 1, 1 on the base, and then I've laid by the side 2, 2, 2, 2, and then 1, 1, 1, 1, and the same for over there. And at the ends, it says it should be a 1, which we've already got on there, then a 4, which is made up with 2 2s, and then a 1 on top. And I've done the same that side. So then we just have to slide them over each one. It's a bit finicky, but it's well worth the effort in the end. So what we're building up is, if you look from the side, it's like a cotton reel. Then on the end here it's 2, and then another 2. That gives us our 4, and then 1 on top. Again at the end, it's a 2, a 2, and a 1. Right, so now it's time we can actually fit the first set of bars. Right, so we can see what we've now done. So the next job is the bars. You need to locate 2 long ones, that's the ones with 4 holes in, and 2 short ones with 3 holes in. Now again, these have got a clean side and a dirty side. The clean side has got a slightly larger hole in it because there's a slight taper when it cuts the hole compared to that side, as you can see. So to make things easier, load it that way up so that you've got the slightly larger hole to pick up on the pins. So the first part we put on is one of the long ones. So as I've got there, flick him over, so you've got a small hole there, and this is a bit fiddly. If you get one end down as I've done there, the next one, and you may have to pull and move the pin a little bit to line it up, and the same for the end one. And then once they're all lined up, just push them down. And then we do exactly the same on the other side. Again, turn them over, line them up, and push them down. Now we can fit the end bars. Again, ditto the same. Line them up and push them down, and the same for the other end. And if you've got your bobbins correctly, that should line up and touch them all, as should the end one there, that side one, and that end one. So we can now build the next layer up. Right, now we lay out ready to do our next layer up, and this is where we use the smaller 1mm ones. As you can see, there's a change in diameter as I explained earlier on. So this is how we now lay them out for the next one. So for the middle section, according to the piece of paper, we should have a 1, a 3 and a 1, a 1, a 3 and a 1, and then in this corner a 1, small 1, 1, and then a 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1, and then a 1, small 1, 1, and then the same over that side. So we'll just slide those on now. So it's the bigger 1mm, smaller 1mm, and bigger 1mm. So we go around and do that on all the posts, which I'll go ahead and do, and when you come back you'd have done the same. Right, that's all mine on. So now we take another 2 long ones and 2 short ones. Again, position it. Goes a lot easier this time. Same over on that side. One's on the end. And the other end. And if you've got your washers correct, again we should have a nice fit all the way round. So we can now move on to the next layer. And now we're going to do our next layer, which is identical to the layer we just done. So you've got a 1, 1, 1, but the middle one is the smaller diameter one, a 1, 3, 1, 1, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1, and ditto over that side. So again, we start to build them up again. This is the last layer. So again, I'll go ahead and do this. If you do the same when you come back, we'll have finished it. Right, I've now done that. So we can now add the final bars, which I'll just grab hold of. Again, 2 long ones, 2 short ones. Place the long ones on first. You should find that the 2 center ones are flush and the 2 end ones stick up. So again, we do the same on the other side. Again, they're flush and those stick up, as you can see. And then we add the end ones. Again, completely flush and completely flush. Now there's one other part which we can add, but it depends on whether you wish to go to this detail or not. There should be some metal plates across the top of there. So if we just take those off, you'll find in the kit It's very thin, and it's a very thin papery silver card, which I'll just grab, and that's what we have here. So we've got two short ones with little square bits engraved in, and two long ones with a hole at each end. There we go. So the proper way to do it is to lay that on first, but we have to glue it on first though. Now to glue it on, I use a spray card mount, which I won't do for the moment, just to show you how it goes together. And then we do one on there, then we drop our pieces on the ends, now what we need to do now is to lock it all down before we put the final pieces on. I won't do it at the moment, I'll just explain what we do. We take some super glue and a very small, like a needle, so dip it in the super glue and then just put a little blob while pushing down on the bar so that it soaks into the top bar and where the rod is, and do that in those three locations. And then you go to the other end and you do exactly the same in those three locations. And you take your spray mount adhesive, which I will show in a moment, and you just give that a light dusting, and very carefully, because that will be glued down, position it so that the squares line up with the pins. So that would go like that, and then you just stick him down. And then you do exactly the same on the other end. Again, give it a spray, line it up, and stick it down. Right, I'll go ahead and do that, and you can see what we're doing. Right, so the first thing we have to do is to just put a spot of super glue on the four middle ones just to lock them in position, and a piece of tissue just to wipe the super glue off the excess. So you take your super glue, just a small amount, put it around the top, and then just wipe back the excess off and just give a bit of pressure. That will lock that piece in. Again, just a little bit around the top, wipe excess off, just keep some pressure on it. We can move over to the other side. Just a touch. It will soak down inside. Then wipe off excess. And do the same for the last one. Right, now the adhesive I use is 3M craft mount, and just spray that onto the back and then you offer it down. So that's what I'll now do. It's a bit mucky doing this. You need to sort of put it against a white piece of paper so you don't get spray everywhere. It's a general piece of paper, and we'll get one of them ready. Just have a little play with the spray first of all, so you can see where it goes. And then just gently over it. It's very sticky. And gently the other end. Give that time to go sticky, which it looks like it is. So now we can lay that on, as I showed you earlier on, over the hole, over the other hole, and just smooth it down. And we turn around and we do the same on the other side. Drop them on the hole, down onto the other one, and smooth it out. Then we take our ends and drop each end over. And then using the super glue, just keep a bit of pressure on there. Just put a little bit of super glue into each hole where the rod is. And then wipe off the excess. That locks that down. Do the same the other end. Again, keeping some pressure on it. Wipe off the excess. Got some excess glue down that side, which I'll take off in a moment. So now we come on to gluing on these, which are the end ones. Piece of paper. Maybe a better glue to use. You could perhaps use a glowy, I think it's called, a children's paper glue. May get on better using that. Just sort of smear it down it. So you can see what I'm doing. So we can now put the end one on. Again, line the square up with the hole where the wire comes up. Get it about central. And then just run it along. Just pushing it down into place. And then we do the same on the other end. And that's done the other one. Right, let's see if I can remove this excess glue. Using my small knife blade. Right, that finishes the basket side of it. So we can now move on and we can now start to build up the underframe and wheels, which is the next section we'll go to. Right, next part to add is the bracket that holds the brake. So find this part here, which I'm holding in my hand, and that goes into that recess that we lined up when we stuck the two parts together. And it will go up. It will fit quite nicely into that recess. So it's up as far as it'll go, and make sure that the hole is there. So we just do that with a little spot of PVA. Well, I've just dropped, there it is, right, okay, so just put a little bit of PVA in there. and offer him in and push him in. And any excess just remove it. So that locates that part. Right, so that's that part located. So now we're going to put in the brake gear. So you need to find this part. You'll see it's got engravings on one side and not on the other. So we need to see the engraving side. You'll find there's two little notches that will drop into. There's a bit of movement there, you slide it backwards and forwards. So we then take the last piece of rod we had, which is the small one, slide it through the hole on the outer bracket and into the hole of the brake assembly. And then while looking down on top, we've got a bit of movement. So we want to move it until the rod is straight. And then we add some super glue into that position and that position while it's being held in that position up against the frame. So I'll just do that. Let's get some more super glue out. So just a little dollop of the runny stuff again. One last quick check. Make sure he's pushed up firmly. In fact, I'm going to have to put a little bit of glue on the front face there. And just there. So that's located. We then can remove the rod, and we'll come back to that in a minute. So the next job really then is to mount the couplings, which is the next job we'll do. Right, we need to find the two hooks, two locators and two tops. It's fairly straightforward how this goes together. The hook drops into the hole, give it a wobble so it goes in there firmly. Then you get the locator, which sits on the back like that. We'll glue this in a moment. And then you put the final cover on with the little arrow facing out, and that locks the whole thing in position. So we'll go ahead and do that. So he goes in. And we add a bit of PVA glue either side. We slide him on. Make sure the hook is roughly straight. And remove any excess glue. And then we need to firmly locate that in with a little bit of super glue. So just into the back, drop a few drops in. And with the tissue, remove the excess. Oh, moth. And then a bit more PVA onto the small cover. And drop that over the hook and push down firmly. And use a knife or tissue again to remove any excess glue. So if you'd like to go ahead and do that on the other side, I will do the same, and when you come back we'll move on to the next part. Right, so I've done my hooks now. I've got a hook each end. So now's a good idea to fit the covers or the banding that goes over. Can you see what I'm doing? There we go, yes. Put the banding on to each end. Now it'll only go one way because they're not actually square, they're oblong. So you'll find that one way it just doesn't want to go, which is that way there. So if you rotate it through 90 degrees and drop it through 90 degrees, you'll find that it slips on. You can just push down on the board and you've got your banding on. So do that the same for the others. This is a nice firm fit, so you shouldn't need any glue to hold this on. Obviously you can glue it if you so desire. Just level it up with your finger. To make sure it stays in, you can put just a little bit of super glue, which I will do on the underside. Just run a bit along. Want to make sure that stays on there, doesn't come off. Right, the next section we now move on to is the wheels, which are very, very straightforward to do. Locate a pair of wheels and the 4 axle boxes, which we've done before. Again, we'll do a dummy dry run. Right, to give you an idea of where it all goes, it's very straightforward. Move those wheels out of the way. We've got scribe lines, and that's where these fit. They fit on the outside, like that, as you can see, and lines up with the scribe lines for both sides. But we've got to do this with the wheels loaded up, otherwise we aren't going to get them in. So load in one wheel, then the other side, and then just as a test run, no glue at the moment, so I'm holding it, take it across and drop it on there, and then you can move it when it's glued until you just see the line, and just see the line there, and then push that one down and that one down, and that glues it in position. And we do this with the white wood glue. So that's the next section we will do. We will actually do this for real. So take him off. Put just a little bit of super glue, white PVA. And then offering down like we did before. Lining up the marks. Got plenty of time. Squeeze in from the side. Line up one side first. Then line up the other one. And then push down and squeeze in. But squeeze not where the axle is, but on the actual frame itself. Make sure the wheel can rotate, and there should be a little bit of slide movement there. Then using the small knife, remove any excess glue. May have oozed through. And we can repeat the process on the other side. So again, we do a dummy run. Slot them in from each side. Position them on the marks. Obviously there's no glue there at the moment. That's going to fit. So then take him up. We add our glue. Offer him in. Line up the line on one side. Do the same on the other side. And then push down firmly on top. And again, squeezing in on the sides. Check the wheel rotates, and there's a little bit of play there. Then remove any excess glue. And put that aside to dry. Right, so we've allowed that to dry, so we now have to add the axle boxes. So turn your wagon over onto its side. And you need to locate four of those. And they locate onto each axle on the end where the circle is. Now the best way to do that is using a sharp knife and a bit of glue. Now you want hardly any PVA glue at all for this particular exercise. Literally just the smallest drop. That's all that's needed. And then we take our axle carded box and we drop it over. And just make sure you can't see the line coming through. And we do the same with the next one. Smallest amount of glue. Again, make sure it's central and remove any excess glue. And now repeat that on the other side. Right, I've done that, so all that's now left to do is to put the braking handle on, and you'll need the short piece, the braking handle, and one 1mm round washer. Oh, if we can see what I'm doing, line up the camera, there we go. Right, so insert the rod, it doesn't want to go this time, it came out of there, so it's bound to go. There we go. And then onto the end of that put the washer, and temporarily just put the handle on so that it lines up with the rod not quite sticking out. So we now need to super glue in the rod to that part, the rod to that part, and the washer on, but not the handle yet, because the handle's not in the right position. So we just do that. So just a little bit of super glue there, some on the other side. Just a touch there, and just a touch where the washer is. And then gently remove the handle. Allow that to dry. When that's dry, we can fit the handle. Right, now we can fit the handle. We'll do a dry fit first of all. So locate it over the pin, and then if you position this part just touching that particular plank like that, so I just hold it there with my hand. That's not far off the right position. I think the correct position is probably running it down there, but if we run it in that position, we're allowed to put just a little bit of super glue on the end of that plank and onto the rod or handle, and that will locate it at that end, and some super glue at that end. So we'll go ahead and do that. So first of all, just a touch of super glue on the pin, and then just a little bit on the end of there. So we drop it onto the pin, and then onto the glue, and just hold that for 4 or 5 seconds. And then if we look down, it's pretty much parallel to the wagon itself. And that is the end of the build. So there you have your wagon. Now if you've taken the option of also purchasing some of the slate packs, then they will look like, I'll just get some slate packs. This is the 4 slate packs that will fit inside to this slate wagon. Now when they come, you've got slate designs all the way around, and a base, which is where it's poured from. Now what you can do is sand off that base to get rid of that area. I personally don't think it's necessary. When you fit them in, if you just drop them in, 1, 2, 3, 4. You could put a bit of plasticine on the bottom of each one just to stop it moving around. There you have your slate wagon. Now, although I haven't cleaned the bottoms off of these particular mouldings, I don't think it notices. I think that's quite acceptable, but it's up to you. So there we have it. That's one complete slate wagon. Please enjoy. Right, just take the slate loads out a moment. Now, I do supply with it a small 3-link chain. While it's not oval, it's of a suitable length, that it's not too long and not too short, which will allow coupling up to numerous other ones of slate wagons. Now, the coupling height is designed to couple up to my existing quarryman's coach, and that comes with a 2-position height buffer, which allows to connect these particular wagons through the quarryman's coach, and then a different buffer on the other end of the quarryman's coach to give the right height for the engine, which I will now show you. This shows the coupling height of the slate wagon to my quarryman's coach. The quarryman's coach has a 2 adjustable height buffer or coupling, as can be seen. At the moment it's shown in the lower position. This allows it to couple up to the slate wagon, and the higher position, which is where my finger is now pointing to there, will then allow it to also connect to your loco. Also supplied with the quarryman's coach are 2 binny buffers, which are set at the normal standard height. So you can use this as an adapter wagon to couple up to your various slate wagons, so you don't get the chain pulling at a very high angle and causing the actual slate wagon to lift. Thank you very much.